writing and high vibe life. And I wanted to come on here and, well, first of all, it's Black History Month, so I just want to acknowledge that and all of our ancestors upon whose shoulders we stand. Acknowledge, my one of my literary heroes, James Baldwin, right here. I got this handy candle. Love that. But really, this video is to come on and talk about, an aspect of maintaining the high vibe. I mean, we live in such really challenging times. I mean, 2020 to really, I mean, like since 2015, right? 20 election cycle before 2016, that, ridiculous presidency we lived through, and then, and the beat goes on with the, virus situation. So it's been tough. And, how to live a high vibe lifestyle, what am I even meaning about that anymore? It's even more important now to, you know, focus on self-care and focus on something in particular that gives you life, gives us life instead of pulling and depleting, because God knows there's enough pulling and depleting. And so one of the things that's been uh, coming up a lot with my coaching clients and my students in the classroom, frankly, is feeling overwhelmed, not just by the circumstances in which we live in the day to day, but feeling overwhelmed in terms of how to plan for the future. Because, when we think about making goals, when you live in, chaotic times like these feel like, how do you make plans for the future? How do you keep a positive mindset when, things look so crazy? And, so what I've been suggesting to my clients and my students is, listen, we can all feel really anxious all the time because we're trying to gain control, to feel like we have a sense of control over our lives. And that can seem like it's slipping away, right? And so we feel crazy, we feel anxious and have sleeping problems or whatever kind of issues come up. So instead of trying to figure it all out, I've been advising people, and I'm advising here now as part of our high vibe life, don't try to figure it all out. Because what does it mean, figure it all out? We can't, right? You can't figure it all out. What we can do, though, is chunk down our goals. Chunk it down so it seems manageable, so that you don't feel overwhelmed by having to figure out the rest of your life. I know, clients, they feel like this, they're like, I can't make, because what ends up happening is you get too overwhelmed because you can't figure it all out, get overwhelmed, and then therefore you kind of go into analysis paralysis. Your mind might be racing, you can't sleep, but nothing positive is really happening. Nothing good is coming out of it because you're spinning. You're just spinning, and therefore the anxiety is rising. So instead of thinking like, okay, well, what can I do? I mean, well, I have to figure something out. I have to make all these goals. My college students do that because they're about 20 years old, right? 18, 19, 20. And they're thinking that they got to make all these decisions about the rest of their lives. And I'm like, no, just try to chunk it down. Chunk it down to between now and the summer, or between now and the end of 2022. Think about that. It's February. From February to December 2022, that already feels enormous because we have lived through times where we're like, we didn't see this stuff coming. So already, if we're struggling to even see through to 2022, how can we possibly see through the rest of our life? And we're trying to make plans like, okay, well, by this time I'm gonna, buy a house. By this time I'm gonna, have a new partner. I better be married by this time. I better have kids by this time. If I don't have these things by this time, then my life is a failure. And that's often what we do, is we set up this arbitrary time period and we say, if we don't have the thing, that we are a failure. But once you get to be over 40, I will say, right, you start to really realize how arbitrary that is, and that indeed it does not mean you're a failure. It just means that life is meant to be lived. There's a progression that has to happen. You can't make decisions from A about Z. You have to walk it and have the experiences first, and then put your life together. The next step will present itself as long as you keep moving along. So here we are in February. You don't have to make plans for November, December. You can just say, I'm going to make plans between now and, let's just say, Memorial Day, or let's just say between now and 4th of July. I'll make my plans like that. And when I get closer to those things, then I'll be able to see further out. So if it gets to be Memorial Day, now I can say, okay, I'll go to Labor Day with my plans. And it gives you a better sense of what is actually doable within, some people, go by the fiscal year, right? And they're like, okay, by end of fiscal year, the first fiscal year, second, I will do this, I will do that, I'll do that, especially if you have a business. But however you come to that fragment of time, that segment of time that you decide, understand that it is still arbitrary, so it doesn't need to pressure you. Who is pressuring you? Oftentimes, we're pressuring ourselves, right? Now, sometimes there are other kind of deadlines that we have to meet, like every April 15th, we got to file taxes by that date. You might have things on your job. There's a certain deadline to things on your job. Okay, you work those in like we always do. But a lot of the stuff that causes us the most stress and pressure is because we're stressing ourselves. We're trying to figure out too much, trying to figure out the whole thing, my whole life. And I'm like, no, we don't need to do that to ourselves. Don't punish yourselves. Don't you give yourself ammunition to beat yourself up with later, to say, okay, I turned 35 and I still didn't have a baby, or, I'm about to buy a house, and, yeah, I'm about to buy my first house. And I could say, oh, I should have done this earlier in life. Well, I didn't. I'm doing it now. So, and I think that's what we need to say a lot more to ourselves and to other people who might be trying to judge. So what? Why do I have to do this by 30? Why do I have to do this by 35? Why do I have to do this before I'm 50? Who says? Sometimes magazine articles or online will say, top 10, young people to watch, 30 under 30, or, things you have to do before you turn 50. And it's like, what? And then we buy into that and we think that that's what it has to be. So then we compare ourselves, and then we can't live a high vibe life because we're beating ourselves up. So I really just want to come on and say, look, here's something that I've been working with a lot lately, because people have been really coming to me with all this angst, and I mean, I've had some myself about various things too, but I realized the problem was we were trying to figure it all out, trying to figure out too many things. Just segment it down and say, within the next 3 months, I will take on this. And then I will see where I am, and I will reassess, and I will make another goal. And people are so afraid of making a mistake, right? I don't want to miss out. What if I miss out? What if I make a mistake? You know what? What happens if you make a mistake? You try again. I will reassess. I will course correct. I mean, sometimes, you do miss out on something. Sometimes there is somewhat of a negative consequence. But you know what? You learn from it and you keep going. Let it be okay. The high vibe life is not about beating yourself up. You're having so many goals, right? I know I talk about having goals all the time, but you have so many goals that they become oppressive to you. And now you can't enjoy your life because you're worried about whether or not the whole thing is going to work out. So, yeah, that was my message for you today. Don't try to figure it all out. Just figure out a little bit and allow yourself to have some joy and peace of mind along the way. All going through this together, and we're doing the best we can. Allow yourself to say, well, I'm doing the best I can, and as I know better, I will do better. I can't figure it all out. I'm going to figure out this part so I can be okay, right? And let that be okay. Really, you can do it. Okay. Speaking of that, I'm going to let this be okay, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.